And mentioning J.D. Vance, he seems to be the front man of bad news lately. Vice President Vance was asked yesterday why he and other Trump administration officials campaigned in Hungary on behalf of Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Take a look at his response.
We didn't go because we expected Viktor to cruise to an election victory. We went because it was the right thing to do, to stand behind a person who had stood by us for a very long time. So this wasn't about Russia, and fundamentally it wasn't about Europe. It was about the United States and the fact that he's been a good partner to both me and the president personally, but also to the United States. I'm sad that he lost. We'll work very well, I'm sure, with the next prime minister of Hungary. But it wasn't a bad trip at all, because it's worth standing by people, even if you don't win every race.
No, it was a bad trip. It was a terrible trip if you believe in Western democracy, if you believe in liberal democracy, if you believe in freedom, if you believe in all the things we grew up believing about pushing back against authoritarianism in Europe. I don't know, maybe JD was, I don't know what he was doing back in '89, but for those of us that can remember it and remember the wall coming down, and remembering what your father fought for, remembering what Reagan fought for, remembering what Thatcher fought for, remembering what Pope John Paul II fought for, all of those battles were not so an autocrat could take control of a country, cripple the free press, crush dissent inside of his own country, and do the sort of things that Viktor Orban did, just cripple the judiciary. All the things that Donald Trump has tried to do in America, intimidate the press, intimidate judges. That's what Viktor Orban did for 18 years. And again, the fact that you had J.D. Vance, Sergei Lavrov, Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, members of Trump's family going all in for the same guy, the worst autocrat, the guy who bragged about being illiberal, about being against traditional Western values, the fact that you think that's okay, well, it just shows how little you know about freedom, how little you know about the history of Western civilization, and how little you know about all the gains that people throughout the decades and generations, all the sacrifices that were made in keeping Europe free. This is a great day for a free Europe. There are going to be bumps ahead. There are going to be problems ahead. This leader that got elected is not perfect, but at least he understands that we are stronger together than we are apart. And at least he understands that Russians should not be running Hungary. Hungarians should be running Hungary.
Joining us now, U.S. national editor and columnist at the Financial Times, Ed Luce, and columnist and member of the editorial board at the Financial Times, Gillian Tett. Good to have you both. Ed, your new piece for the Financial Times is entitled The Ever-Shrinking J.D. Vance, and you write in part this: the job was not designed to be fun, with the exception of the late Dick Cheney, who covered in George W. Bush's first term. It is usually powerless. Being Trump's number two brings unique discomfort. Trump chose Vance for his pugilistic loyalty, but defending policies that often turn 180 degrees overnight, from vowing to destroy a civilization, say, to announcing a new golden age for it, requires pure acrobatics. Even Henry Kissinger would be struggling. Vance is flailing. He is thus no longer Trump's obvious successor. Trump now makes a habit of lightly teasing Vance at public events. Gentle can quickly turn to savage if Trump loses respect. It does seem like he's on the front lines of some of these very tenuous situations, Ed. And there are others who are also taking part in these activities, but J.D. Vance is taking the heat.
He's taking the heat. I mean, what he was saying about his trip to Hungary last week, the one he took en route to the Islamabad talks, as being just paying respects to a friend and an ally, but not expecting him to win. This isn't true. He went there and he said to Hungarians, are you prepared to defend Western civilization? If Orban loses, Western civilization loses. And Vance has been saying this all along. I mean, he went to Munich, if you will remember, last year on Valentine's Day and urged far-right parties basically to take over Europe, said he was with them. He went and saw the German extreme far-right AfD leader. He snubbed mainstream leaders. So this has been a project of his. And what's really interesting about it is that it's kind of the kiss of death. Having Vance, having Trump endorse you really embarrasses the far right in Europe, and it rallies everybody else to vote against you. And that was true before the Iran war. But now that the Iran war is happening, the Trump-Vance brand is so toxic that real Trump-Vance loyalists like Nigel Farage in Britain are now distancing themselves from them. So it isn't helpful, their endorsement. And so I imagine mainstream parties are going to be begging for Vance to do more such trips in the near future.
Oh, they would love that. I mean, you look, Gillian, at how even the betting markets, and of course the betting markets seem to be the new polls, the betting markets collapsed for Orban as J.D. Vance, Air Force Two was taking off there. But I want to circle back because I can't let J.D. Vance's claim, Orwellian claim, that somehow Orban was a defender of Western democracy go by. Here's a man who, over his time in office, he crushed the free press. He dismantled the independent judiciary. He rigged the political system in such a way that what happened a couple days ago was just simply unthinkable throughout most of his reign. He was an autocratic thug, and he was proud of being an autocratic thug. Talk about the importance of that autocratic thug being beaten in such a resound way in Europe.
Well, for Europeans, this is critical because it's basically shown that you can push back against authoritarianism, and that is very, very important. But here's a really important message to take away from this election result for Americans, which is that for many, many years, Hungarian voters have been getting angry with the corruption and the authoritarianism, the abuse of human rights, etc., etc. But that in itself was not enough for voters to rise up and actually sweep Orban out of power. The thing that really caused the spark was the cost of living crisis inside Hungary. And you can see how a simmering resentment against the political direction of a country, when you combine that with the cost of living crisis, can create a revolt at the ballot box. And that's a message that has a lot of implications, not just for America, but obviously with the midterms coming up in America, but elsewhere in Europe as well.